My great grandfather was teaching people about generational wealth in the early 1900s. He was teaching people about pooling their resources. He was teaching people how to create trust and create deed of trust so that they can own land. His history has laid the groundwork for what I'm doing now today of teaching people about generational wealth, about trust, about cryptocurrency and blockchain as wealth building tools. I just got off a phone call with one of my older cousins who keeps a lot of the family history and knows much of the family history. And let me tell you a story. I just came back from my family reunion last week, and I was asking some of the family members about a particular story that I had heard. And the story that I had heard was about my great grandfather. I was asking about the Montgomerys. I said, I heard that the Montgomerys had to leave Oklahoma because they were funking in Oklahoma and they had issues in Oklahoma. Either somebody had gotten beat up, somebody had gotten killed, but it was like my family wasn't taking no mess off of nobody. Come to find out that the person that was having the funk was my great grandfather, Simon Peter Montgomery. And what was going on was that him and 7, 8 other family of the other family members, not just family members, but 7 or 8 families were all leaving together. And they, I'm sorry, trying to get my car all together. They were leaving Oklahoma on their way to California. And it was my great great grandfather, Simon Peter Montgomery, who was basically leading that particular caravan. And he was leading everyone out west. The reason why they were leaving Oklahoma was because they were looking for better opportunities out in California. He was going to take a risk. Now, along that time in the early 1900s, late 1800s and early 1900s, it was very dangerous for Black folks to travel across country. And so the reason why they traveled in groups was for safety. My great great grandfather, Simon Peter Montgomery, wasn't for taking no mess off of nobody. And he was known for carrying 245s on his hip. Now, I thought that was funny because my first pistol that I ever bought was a 45. It was a 1911 and it was a 45 pistol. And there's a lot of things that our history and our ancestors help determine who we are. That blood is literally flowing through our veins. That Simon Peter Montgomery blood is flowing through my veins. And it is very interesting to see how it is showing up. I found out a lot of history about my great grandfather, my great great grandfather, from this conversation, from the fact that my great grandfather was teaching people about generational wealth in the early 1900s. He was teaching people about pooling their resources. He was having secret meetings, teaching people how to create trust and create deed of trust so that they can own land. My great great grandfather, Simon Peter Montgomery, bought 50 acres of land and created farmland and was a wealthy man. Not a rich man, he was a wealthy man. And to see how his history has laid the groundwork for what I'm doing now today of teaching people about generational wealth, teaching people about trust, teaching people about cryptocurrency and blockchain as wealth building tools. I found out some more history about my great great grandfather, Simon Peter Montgomery, that as a Black man during that time who didn't take no mess off of nobody, and for sure wasn't taking any mess off of white folks, that along that journey from Oklahoma to California, that it was Ida, get the gun. He was telling his wife Ida to get the gun. He carried 245s on his hip. He carried a 45 on each hip, which meant that he knew how to use both of them with both hands. Do you know how dangerous of a person you have to be? Do you know how dangerous of a person you are if you know how to shoot a 45 pistol offhand with your non-dominant hand? It's a bad man. He had 245s and he had a shotgun that his wife was responsible for. So when he said, "Ida, get the gun," the shotgun was laid across the front of the hood, and all she had to do was grab it, and it was already pointed at whoever it needed to be pointed at. My great great grandfather, Simon Peter Montgomery, didn't take any mess. He was a very serious man. From just those stories alone, it lets me know that he was a man that did not play, that he was a very serious man. Serious about building wealth, serious about protecting his family. See, our history is important because this is a big world out here, very big world out here, and some of us can feel lost. I know I've felt lost in this world at times of trying to figure out who I am, where do I belong? And oftentimes it's because I didn't know my history. Imagine how much more empowered I would be, I would have been earlier in life if I had known my history. And you hear older folks say, "Oh, that's the problem with these young folks. They don't know their history." But nobody tells us why it's important to know your history. It's important to know your history because when you're feeling lost in the world, your history, your family history provides context. It provides a map of where you were, where you came from, where you can go, and how far you can take it. And really, how far you take it is based upon the belief that you have in yourself and God. My great grandfather, Simon Peter Montgomery, bought land, 50 acres, employed people. He made all son-in-laws foremen on the farmland, employed Mexican workers, fed his family, provided employment for his family. I also found out that my great grandfather, Simon Peter Montgomery, worked with, knew and worked with Elijah Muhammad before he was known as Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. My great great grandfather, Simon Peter Montgomery, worked with Elijah Poole in Phoenix, Arizona. Simon Peter Montgomery was a Garveyite. He was a black nationalist, believed in pooling his resources, generational wealth, and the family working together and becoming powerful. Like to think that's the lineage that I come from. This is the banner that I carry. That when I walk in the room, it's not only about this is who I am and what I've accomplished, but this is what the men before me have accomplished. This is how they have set me up for success. So if they did what they did back then when the odds were all against them, imagine what I'm going to do with the odds being against me. Fighting in the court system, fighting against a corrupt child support system, fighting against a corrupt political system, fighting against a corrupt legal system. A fire has been lit in me, and I ain't taking no mess off of anybody. I'm not allowing anything to scare me. I'm not allowing anything to deter me, to discourage me. You know who my great great grandfather was? I'm a Montgomery. I'm a Montgomery.